Hi, my name is Mina, and I'm a guide who specializes in addictive and compulsive behavior. And today we're going to answer a good question: why we keep relapsing back to our destructive addictive behavior despite trying so hard to stop. Well, let's get to it. How many times have you tried to stop doing this compulsive addictive habit and couldn't? How many times have you planned and prepared so you wouldn't relapse again on your relapse? How many times have you looked for ways and strategies to prevent the possibility of a fall, only to fall? The way I phrase these three questions might trigger feelings of shame and guilt in you, that you're a failure and a loser, weak and pathetic. Well, please don't listen to these thoughts and feelings. That's not why I brought up these questions to you. If anything, feelings of shame and failure are what keep us stuck in this vicious, never ending cycle of destructive behavior. I know part of you already knows this. Um, I pointed out to you that you have tried numerous times in various ways to stop this cycle, and you couldn't, to illustrate that there is a foundational problem here. I have been in the same situation. Every day, I'd wake up with new and renewed hope, God knows how. That is the day I'll stop. And by the end of the day, surely I'd fallen again. I know how you continually suffer. Well, people on the outside think you are intentionally choosing this life. They think you're morally weak. They think that you're a stupid fool who doesn't listen to common sense. They think that you don't love yourself and you don't love them enough, so you'd stop for your and their sake. They think you're mentally and psychologically different. I'm here to tell you that all these labels are wrong, even if you believe them yourself, especially if you believe them yourself. You should know by now that shaming and blaming, forcing and coercing, nagging and begging, avoidance and resistance do not work. If they did, we will all be free of every destructive and compulsive behavior a long time ago. I know that a part of you knows this already. I'm pointing you to these facts to direct this part of you that knows that there is fundamentally something dysfunctional in your way of living, in your mood of being. That no matter what strategy or plan you implement, as long as the way you operate is the same, you'd fall sooner or later. Sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it takes an hour. Doesn't matter really. I could lie to you as I used to lie to myself for so long and say that these strategies will eventually work while allowing you to keep your old way of living. But they will not. Unfortunately, they will not. But the sooner I admitted that there's an inherent problem in the way I operate, the sooner a real change started to happen. A real transformation started to happen. I'm telling you this not to make you fall in despair, but I'm talking today to you to give you hope beyond all these useless and effective rules and methods. Now, some of you might feel very repulsed and resistant to the idea that your whole way of operating and living is flawed. That's all right. That's how I felt at first, too. Well, I tried everything you could think of to stop my compulsive and addictive behavior within my old way of living. I prayed and kept a religious life. It didn't work. I looked for practical steps online and for strategic science based courses. It didn't work. I joined several 12 steps programs and had several sponsors for every addiction and destructive behavior I could label. Well, it didn't work. I looked for wisdom in ancient and not so ancient philosophies and traditions. You know, Stoicism, Buddhism, New Age spirituality, and whatever is trendy at the moment. Guess what? It didn't work. I read and studied very carefully the recent scientific findings and psychological theories on addiction and recovery. It didn't work. Yeah, you could say my whole old way of operating didn't work. Well, some of you might think, man, this guy is a total loser. Or maybe not. I don't know. But what I know for sure is now, while I'm reflecting on all of this, I'm grateful. I got to try everything I could with a commitment I had. So I got to realize from this experience that there is something defective at the basis. That is the real shortcut. And I'll clarify what I mean by that going on in the video. As you might have guessed, I'm not the kind of guy who quits or gets discouraged easily. If I'm determined to fix or figure out something, I stick to it till it's done. It's something I was born with, really. Anyway, I'm telling you this to make it even a little bit easier for you to believe when I say I realized my old ways are really flawed. It's rightfully so. Well, then I had two options. I could keep banging my head into the wall trying to make any of these strategies work, or I could look for an altogether different way. Somehow, I was sent at just the right time some messages from different sources that I can't fix the problem through my pragmatic and instrumental strategies and techniques. And as I realized this, a sense of relief washed over me. You could say some part deep in me always knew this. And this is when a real change started to happen. A different attitude toward life, a new mode of being, a new way of living. I have been studying and researching the topic of addiction full time for at least the past 5 years. And that is the solution that worked for me and many others I've encountered. You know, it could also work for you if my introduction sparks some interest in you. You could say some warm, hopeful vibration in your being that you recognize the sense in it. To get myself some credibility, I've helped many with their addictive behaviors and other personal challenges, like relationship, family life, career traumas, rejections, insecurity, and so on, when they lost every hope. Many I have witnessed have also realized this solution in those specific terms or in different ones, and were saved from either, say, misery and slavery of addiction. My own journey is a strong testimony to the possibility of this transformation, and I hope this view helps you a little on your path of recovery and of becoming a better, happier human being. If some part of you is very skeptical, that's normal. Please keep watching, and I'll shed some of your doubts away in a few minutes. If you feel by now that this is a recovery path you're interested in, you could access this presentation from the link below to review it whenever you like. Also, there's a link to our newsletter where I publish my ideas on addiction and other personal problems and self development issues that we all encounter in our lives. Also, wait till the end of the video to tell you uh, about the upcoming comprehensive recovery program. Now, let's get back to the video. Understanding the problem. Here, the problem of addiction. Well, I'll present practical, evidence based steps that would mainstream and accelerate or even strengthen your recovery. Um, the first step is obviously to know the problem. It seems very obvious, right? But a lot of people really disregard that. From my experience, comprehending and pinning down the diagnosis of your problem is the first step in resolving the problem, if not 50% of the whole solution, really. Anywho, we live our lives from the day we're born till the day we die, trying to find happiness in life. And this could mean different things to us at the different chapters of our lives, really. Some pursue family and stability, some pursue financial success and prosperity, some pursue creative or profession, passion and expression, some pursue love and social connections, some pursue travel and adventure, some pursue scholarship and research, and you get the picture and so on. Actually, most of us want some combination of all these things. And that's okay. That's how we're all born and live. We all live like that. But the thing that one might get realized at some point in life is that we are powerless over all these conditions of happiness. Well, yes, we pursue them and wish for the right outcomes and results that would grant us and ensure us happiness, but ultimately, if we're honest with ourselves, we have no power over the results. And therefore, we have no real power over our happiness. We have no real power over our happiness. I know some part of you might reject such an idea. After all, that's all you know, and that's how you lived all your conscious life. And by pursuing some kind of goal to get to some results, so you'd be content and satisfied. Even maintaining the status quo means that we do the same things and not do the same things we're not doing. So the status quo conditions and outcomes might remain, hopefully, indefinitely. So, yeah, you're also bound to your results and conditions. And that's all that we know in life. That's our default mode of living. Our default mode of living is to have our happiness and contentment attached to conditions and outcomes. And by virtue of their nature, conditions and outcomes are ultimately outside of our control. Well, guess I'm not denying that some course of action and activity would most likely lead to the desired result more than others. Of course, I'm not denying them. That would be ridiculous. Like, for example, if you want a muscular fit body, you'd probably work out daily and go to the gym and maintain a nutritious, healthy diet. That's the best course of action that would ensure your desired results. There is no question about that. And if you decided to do the opposite, like having a sedentary, inactive lifestyle and overeating an unhealthy diet, that for sure would most probably keep you farthest from your desired results. But that's not what I'm saying. That's definitely not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to convey to you is that your contentment and happiness is conditioned by whether you have your desired results and conditions or not, even if it's within your reach. Now, you might say to me, so what? That's life and that's the price of happiness, the risk of whether you could reach your goals or not. And I totally agree with you. That's life, and that's the only way things work here in the world. You set yourself a goal and take the risk of pursuing it, and you are happy. Anything worth doing confirms to this law, kind of building, for example, building a business, having a family, traveling, working out, and so on. All these activities include a lot of risk associated with them if your desired conditions aren't met. But that's not the issue. The issue, again, is that your ultimate contentment and happiness, your inner well being, is conditioned and tied to whether these conditions and outcomes are met or not. If you looked closely at your life and behavior, you'd see that your happiness and satisfaction are strictly conditioned by the conditions you care about. Maybe you don't care if you have a lot of money, maybe you don't care if you have kids, maybe you don't care if your business got much bigger, maybe you don't care if your neighbors are loud, and so on. But I promise you, there are certain outcomes and conditions that you deeply, deeply care about. And if they are lagged or aren't reached, your happiness and contentment would be thrown out of the window. If you, God forbid, lost a loved one, if you became homeless, if you or a loved one got a fatal disease, if you lost your job, if your wife left you, if you failed your exams, and so on, think about it and you'd see that these situations could make your happiness and contentment with life a thing of the past. At least for a period of time until you face or forget about these situations. You will also see, most importantly, that all these conditions that you really care about are not ultimately in your control and power. You're powerless over them. Well, I call this mood the reactive way of living. The word reactive here has two meanings. The first is you live your life seeking one reaction after another, condition after condition, emotion after emotion, outcome after outcome. That applies to the things you seek or the things you avoid. It is the fault way of being I described earlier that's at the core of addictive behavior. The second meaning is that it's a way of operating that entails you mostly reacting to a negative emotional state or stress. You could say fear, anger, insecurity, or like. To seek another reaction or outcome to satisfy or solve said fear, anger, insecurity, and lack. You see, you don't act according to a free, true desire and will in you. You react to negative emotions you have. It is a constant restlessness that tries to achieve rest, peace, and contentment through the external instruments of the world. Some unconscious part of you is highly aware of this fact, I'm sure of it. that your happiness and psychological well being is deeply conditioned by circumstances and outcomes that are out of your control. Your subconscious know that you are powerless over your life and the conditions of your happiness. So you seek emotional stability or peace unwittingly by the reactive way of living. You know that the minute you feel bad and dissatisfied about some certain outcome and condition that's not met, your your whole being and emotional state become disturbed and unsettled. Therefore, because these feelings are intolerable to you, as we have covered, your whole happiness is tied to outcomes and how you feel about them. So you get this intense urge to change your uncomfortable emotional state. You have no control over your emotional state as it's tied to the outcomes and the feelings aroused by those outcomes. So what could you do? You go for the addictive act. Think with me for a minute from your own personal experience. Isn't the addictive behavior merely a tool to make you feel good when you're down? Isn't I want you to pay close attention to the next time the destructive, addictive, or compulsive urge is aroused to you. From my experience and many others' experiences, it happens because you are in a situation where you're afraid that you have no power over some condition or result you tie to your happiness. It doesn't mean that you are really powerless over it, but you feel, at least subconsciously, for some reason, that you're powerless over it, and of course, ultimately, you are. You are powerless. We're never truly in control of any external condition or outcome. Some personally special conditions and outcomes, when they're not met, make you feel very uncomfortable and unsettled. That you have to do something to change how you feel. That something, most probably, is your addictive behavior. No surprise. The addictive drive is a very strong drive that stems from what you could call a noble purpose. Well, you can't tolerate your helplessness over your emotional state and happiness and your slavery to conditions and outcomes, so you seek to change it through the pleasurable addictive act. But as you are well aware by now, this noble purpose is misguided in its means of achievement, as the addictive behavior or any other external effort or object would never make you truly happy and at peace. That that's in addition to the horrible material consequences you suffer because of your addictive behavior that brought you to this video in the first place. You could say, actually, addiction is just a chronic symptom of the inherently flawed reactive way of living. Well, there you have it, the root cause of addiction. To summarize, your happiness and well being is conditioned by conditions that are out of your power. You don't like the state of conditioned happiness, rightly so, especially when it threatens some conditions you deeply care about, so you get the strong urge to act and change the way you feel, which manifests in the addictive or compulsive behavior. Now, as you might have guessed, the ultimate solution to addiction is essentially to break the strong link between your happiness and your life conditions. And any other way that involves changing or fixing external conditions would eventually, I assure you, would eventually bring you back on your knees to to your sweet poison, the addictive act. Another caveat I want to mention is that it doesn't matter what form your addictive behavior takes, really, as easily you could substitute one behavior with another. That is, don't think because you stop smoking, you could do whatever you want. As long as you didn't resolve or handle the addictive drive and instead force or repress it, uh, your temporary illusory fix would surely take another form. Like, for example, overeating. You stop drugs and take up alcohol. And you could stop overeating and pick up on masturbation. It's a vicious cycle unless you uproot it. And I promise you, it could be done. I promise you. So, what is the solution? When I first told a dear friend of mine this theory of how humans live and how this way of living causes some destructive addictive behavior, he told me, but that's all we know. That's the only way we know how to live. And I said to him, surely you could argue to be reactive is actually to be human. What I know for sure is that this way of living is the default for almost everyone, unless they do some intentional work and progress. So there's nothing to be ashamed or guilty about. That's the way we're all brought to live like in this world for some reason. It also hints at the idea that to have a different way of being, say an active lifestyle, is something very different at the core from the reactiveness we all know. Just to make sure I'm not trying to scare you straight, it's a gradual, forgiving, and understanding path. I'm just trying to make you understand from a different angle why all the methods that you have tried do not work. And they didn't work for me. They don't work, I repeat, to let it sink in you, because they try to externally fix your behavior without changing or engaging with your faulty mindset and way of operating. They try to give you a quick external fix and not examine and try to cure the root cause of your disease. Simple. By this logic, you will never be entirely healed, no matter the external remedy you try. So, what does it mean actually to have an active lifestyle? Well, simply, it is to enjoy life with all its pleasures and joys, but most importantly, without being a slave to any. Yeah. By active, I don't mean being busy, by the way, or doing more things. I mean acting from a place of internal choice rather than external pressure. To live in the world, but not be of the world, as a wise man once said. Why would you need compulsively any pleasure? Your happiness and well-being will no longer be tied to changing uncontrollable conditions, but to something higher, much more stable, infinite, and permanent. The action or behavior you engage in wouldn't be out of a negative, fearful, reactive need or compulsion. Well, you'd act only out of inward active will. That is unconcerned, unbounded, unconditioned by any worry, consideration, compulsive urge, or stress. You'd be totally free to do what feels right to you at the moment, what seems helpful and beneficial to you and to others. And I'm sure you have done such active deeds in your life, like enjoying a day at the beach, helping someone in need for no apparent benefit to you, being friendly with a child, having a laugh, being interested in a topic, reading a book only for the sake of your curiosity, and many other active activities. I assure you, no one is 100% reactive. Actually, that is our whole premise for our method, really. Anyway, how to implement this solution, this method? Well, the solution is to base your contentment, peace, worthiness, and happiness on a much more secure and stable foundation. This foundation is a different identity and way of living. That is, an identity out of strength, security, and fullness, not weakness, insecurity, and lack. Your default identity should be to perceive yourself always as whole, holy, and happy. That is, to see no lack or hole in you, no guilt or insecurity, no justified suffering or restlessness. Now, instead of living reacting to fear, depression, and restlessness, void, anger, and insecurity, you'd act out of total fullness, peace, and contentment. Unbelievable, right? Well, to reach this new identity and way of living, you need to practice its thought system. Because, Thoughts and mental behavior is the ultimate cause and basis of your decisions, feelings, and actions. For example, the way you interpret the meaning of a given situation as threatening or attacking is very different from seeing it as neutral or irrelevant. And based on your interpretation and the meaning you assign to the situation, your whole behavior would be different. Well, to sum it up, it's mainly by changing your mental behavior that you change your physical behavior. That's the rule. You need to change your mind to know and experience with certainty that you are whole, holy, and happy. You need to reach this place in you that is calm and still, where you need do nothing to fix or fulfill yourself. You realize the unconditioned happiness yourself has been seeking all along is actually at hand. Wonderful, right? It's not a single act or decision, but a gradual process where you learn to think and act out of this newfound joyful and kind and peaceful center of being, instead of the old restless, fearful, and insecure one. From this awareness, you will enjoy your experiences in the world much more and suffer the painful ones much less, if at all, really. As your happiness and peace are no longer bound by any external experience or situation, you no longer need to seek pleasure or avoid pain. Simply. Well, you'll be free to do what you think right and be truly helpful to yourself and others. And your actions will no longer be limited or constrained by any fear, lack, or insecurity. Wouldn't that be a wonderful life? Isn't this the life we all deserve? Well, I'm here to tell you, to share with you the good news that it is possible and within your reach. It is within your reach. And in due time, you will no longer have any use for any addictive or any destructive compulsive behavior. You'll be free. Well, yes, it is a hard way that requires patience, serious work, and focus, but it's quite simple, really. I hope you understood the message that I've been trying to convey to you. And if you did, to some extent, it is really simple. And it could be done with the right guidance and a comprehensive, practical pathway in a few weeks or a few months and reap its joyful fruits for a lifetime, for the rest of your life. If you're interested in a paid program to resolve your addiction at the core with a curriculum of this kind of recovery that I've been describing, with one-to-one sessions with me guiding you through the process, please, please fill out the consultation form in the description below. Um, I'll be conducting the first cohort in a few weeks, and it will be the only one with live lectures, with Q&As from students. It would be the only live program that I would deliver. It would be recorded later on. Also, there is a limited number of this cohort, something between 20 to 25. Just something to know. Uh, of course, not trying to push or pressure you. Just it has limited capacity, and first come, first seated. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you found this video helpful or inspiring a little bit, then consider subscribing to this new petite channel to come across our upcoming videos and to join our growing community. And please leave any questions, any comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to answer them. Nothing gives me more joy than discussing my interests, really, and passions. Don't worry if you're not sure what to do with all you've heard in this video. Yeah, I know it's a lot, but I promise you, I promise, no good effort is ever wasted. I hope you're not overwhelmed. I hope. If you are a bit, it's totally okay. It's normal. It took me years to realize all of this, and I leave you with this. Just do the heist, for the time being. Just do the heist you know now. That's it. That's really your only possibility and responsibility. And yeah, that's the only thing you could really do if you thought about it. Do the heist you know now. Well, Yeah, thank you again. Have a good one and see you.